Okay, today I'm going to replace the gauge faces with these white gauge faces, and also complete the transition to LEDs with the last bulbs on the bike, which are here on the instrument cluster. To get this off the bike, it's really easy. You just take the front fairing off, and then you got these three nuts you're going to take off from the front, and then you got just these two connectors and two single bullet wires here, and then that's it. That's all, and then this will come right off. And it looks like to take it apart, you probably don't need to remove any of the wires. You're just going to remove these screws around the edge, and this whole unit should come out of the faceplate with the glass. So let me take those off, see if that'll work. Okay, I forgot to mention, you also have to remove the speedometer cable from right here, and it's just screwed on there with the little knurled knob, like you can do it with your hand, but it's probably going to be pretty tight, so you can just use some pliers just to kind of get it loose, and then take it the rest of the way off, just untwisting it from here. You don't have to take this whole thing off. So I removed 7 screws from the perimeter, and now this should just pop right out. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get this. There we go. Okay, so the front just comes off, and here's our gauge faces. So get it kind of secured, and then you're going to we need to get these needles off first. We got 4 needles. So you get 2 spoons, and you're just going to go underneath right where the needle connects, and kind of gently lever them off at the same time. So let's try that with this guy right here. Let me fix this angle. Hold on. I don't know. That might be a little better. Okay, let me try this. Get it under there as best that you can. Try and go evenly. I'm getting one side too much. It's on there tight. Oop. Okay. So there's the needle. This little cap. You can see how tight it's on there. This is just a cap. And it'll go back just like that. So there's our tack needle. And we're going to do that for the other 3 here. It's easier if you can see what you're doing without that cap on there. Oh man, it's on there tight. Oop. Okay, here's another one. There we go. Okay, same thing as before. It just pops back together. There we go. Okay, we got them all. Okay, so now that you've taken these off, you can just put them to the side with your screws for the moment. And the next thing you're going to do is actually remove the faces. So they each have 2 screws on these large gauges. Actually, they all have 2 screws, and then 2 screws here, 2 screws there. So let's try taking those off. This is a 3/32 like jeweler's, micro Phillips head. They're pretty tight. There might be some kind of Loctite or something on there. So just kind of go slow. And that just pops right off. So let's do that for the rest of them. I'm just going to put this right here for now. Those are much looser. And the rest of these are just normally torqued. The tachometers were really tight. Okay, so there's all the gauge faces removed. If you look, they're kind of mounted on this piece of plastic with the tint in between it. How does that work? Okay, so I set up a few of the gauge faces. What you have to do is, if you can see right there, the needle stop. You got to take this off the old gauge and put it onto the new one. So you can see I got, it's hard to tell where they are, I think right there and right there. And this guy is right there. On the tachometer, there's also a little jewel right here, which is for the low fuel light. So you just pry it off the back, and it's got some foam on it that you can just take that off with some alcohol and push it in there. And then I just glued it, put a little super glue on there, and that'll do for that. So to get these things off, you can use use a little nut, or a socket, a push pin, and then you're going to hammer it out. So you put the needle inside the socket there, and then you'll line this up here. The right there is where the where that needle stop is. So you're just gonna kind of punch it out. Basically, it's pressed in there really tight. Like the back end of this is too big for the hole it's in, so it's really tough to get it out. There you go. So that popped right out. There it is. It's really tiny. So we're gonna put that in the new gauge. Problem is, it's really tough to get it in from the front like you're supposed to. So I was sticking it in from behind, which is fine for these, I believe. But the tachometer sits on this plate, which doesn't leave you any room on the back. So this thing has to be flush. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I might try and grind it off, or see if I can push it through the front. I'm not sure yet. Okay, so I was able to get it in there. I used the push pin. I pushed the push pin all the way through, and that got the hole just a little bit bigger, where I could push it in from the front like you're supposed to. And then just to make sure it stays where it needs to, I put a little, just a little drop of super glue on the back side, just right there, just to hold it in place. So these, on the stock gauges, you have these blue portions, or what make it, it's like a blue-green, you know, when you turn your lights on at night. It's not white, it's like a blue-green color. These don't come with that. I think they might be made to maybe sit on top of the stock gauge, but they don't line up perfectly. So the blue light is only in certain spots. So I'm going to leave that off. If you want it, you could just get a piece of colored, cellophane or tint, or I'm sure if you go on Amazon, you could find colored plastic and glue that on the back. But I'm going to go for these. When you shine the light through, the red parts are red, and then the black parts are white at night. So that's kind of the theme I'm going for, so I'm just going to leave it like that. And then this guy, so this is going to sit on here, and it connects with these little rubber deals. So I'm going to put these back together, and then we'll move on to putting them back in the pod. Okay, so here's the gauges finished, mounting everything. I went ahead, I changed my mind. It was pretty bright with the LEDs, so I did put this, it's like a UV reflective window tint I had laying around. It's got like it's kind of blue, so it comes through really pale blue now. And then don't forget, on the speedometer you have to mount it to this plastic piece before it goes back in the gauge housing, and it goes on the back of the gauge. You got 2 locating holes, and it's just it was drilled a little bit too out of place, so this one I had to open it up just a little bit, but it fits really well in there now. And then before you put it back together, so these are the original needles, but you can see they're not going to work that great on the white gauge. It's kind of hard to see. What you could do is on the back, that's a sticker, and that's where the white of the needle comes from. So you could peel that off and then paint it. They make reflective, like fluorescent needle paint. But what I did was the 94 to 97 VFR uses the same needle, or it's the exact same style, but it has a red needle. So I got that, and I painted the little cap there to match the stock one, just with the white face and the red needle. They're pretty close. The old one was kind of nicer. It has like a brass nub, where the newer one has a plastic one. But it should mount the same, and that way you can actually see where the needle's going to be. So let me see if I can put those back in there. Okay, so before you put the faces back in, right here is your fuel warning light, and that's where that foam was. It's got a piece of foam so that the these other gauge lights won't shine into that thing and make you think you're low on fuel. So I just took a sponge and kind of made a replacement here that just glue on the top. It doesn't have to be perfect. You won't ever even see it really. So I'm going to glue that down, and then we'll put the faces back on. Okay, and finally, so I got the thing screwed on there, and you're just going to push the needles back on. I think you want to get them to 0, so I'm just trying to have it touching the peg when I push it on. That should be it. Before you put the top back on, make sure you clean it very well, get all the little specks of dust off there, because you're not going to be able to clean it once you put the cover on, and then also clean the inside of the lenses really well. There we go. There's the finished product. Looks nice. Came out really good. So you're gonna put your screws back in the other side, and then I'll move on to the LEDs. So for the LEDs, I got two different kind. I got these, which are kind of directional. They shoot out the front. And then these they shoot out in 5 directions to the side and up. So these are all white, and they're going to go to illuminate the gauge faces and the needles. And then these are colored to match whatever indicator light. So amber, blue, green, red, amber, amber, and then one more red for the fuel. And these are pretty easy. They just plug in just like the stock bulbs. So just go slowly, and if you get all white, then it doesn't really matter. You can just put them in wherever, but just go one by one, make sure you match up the colors. It's pretty plug and play. So I'm going to pop those in, and then we can see how it looks. Okay, there's how the LEDs turned out. I'm getting a little bit of light bleed around where the needles connect, but it's not too bad. Yeah, it looks pretty good. The turn signal, all the indicator LEDs are pretty good, except this neutral. That is bright, but it shouldn't be a problem. That doesn't really normally come on. But nice, not too bad. It looked pretty good.